In this video, we're going to look at sprite animations in PyGame. Hey guys, John Alder here from Codemy.com, and up until now, our platformer game has had Aspen as the main character. Aspen's my dog, and it's just a picture of Aspen's head. Now, our Aspen character doesn't have legs or arms, so we can't really animate her. So in this video, we're going to swap out Aspen for a new character that does have legs and arms, and then we're going to animate those legs and arms so they move when you walk. Sprite animations in PyGame are actually pretty simple and it shouldn't take us very long at all. So let's head over to our code. I'm using the Sublime Text Editor in the Git Bash terminal as always. And as always, you can find a link to the code in the pinned comment section below, as well as a link to a playlist with all the other videos in this PyGame series. So check that out if you haven't so far. And if you like this video and want to see more like it, be sure to smash the like button below, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and check out Codemy.com, where I have dozens of courses with thousands of videos that teach you to code. Use coupon code YouTube50 to get 50% off lifetime memberships, all my courses, videos, and books for a one-time fee, which is insanely cheap. Okay, so I've got the code that we've been working on in the last few videos. I've renamed it Aspen_platform7.py. It was 6 in the last video. And before we get into the code here, let's actually download some animated sprite images that we can use. Now, they're not animated. They're a series of single shot images, but when you play them very fast, they move. So there's an image of like this, and then like this, and then like this, and then, you know, one at a time, and we play those in a loop, and it looks like an animation. So there are all kinds of websites online where you can find tons of these types of graphics, some for free, some for paid. So let's come over here, and we're going to use a website called gameart2d.com. And you can see there's all kinds of cool stuff that you can use on this website. They have sprites, they have tile sets, backgrounds that you can use, game GUIs, miscellaneous assets, free assets. We're going to come up here and click on freebies. And you can see there's a bunch of different characters we could use. We could use Santa Claus, a dinosaur. Here is one that has dogs and cats. Now, we've been doing an Aspen game with my dog Aspen. So this is, you know, close as we're going to get to a dog. And this kind of looks like Aspen. It's their cat, but it's gray and the eyes are actually blue when we look at it. So we'll use this gray cat and we'll call that Aspen. Don't tell Aspen that we're using a cat for her image. But anyway, click this free download this anywhere. I'm just going to save it to my desktop. And we need to unzip this file. So when it downloads up here in Firefox or down here in Chrome, go ahead and click it. And when we do, we get this thing, and we want to come up here and extract all. And when we do, we want to open the thing when we're done. So let's go ahead and extract. So inside of here, there's a cat and a dog, and the dog is sort of looks the same as the cat. It's just kind of blonde colored, and the cat pretty much looks the same as the dog, only it's gray. Aspen is gray, so we're going to use the cat. Now, you'll see there's a whole bunch of different images here. So for instance, let's grab this walk. If I open this, you can see this is a huge image, so we're going to need to resize this. But if I click next, you can see, well, hopefully you saw that, it was kind of walking. So as you go to the next images, it looks like it's walking. Very cool. So if we go ahead and open this, if I open it in Photoshop, there's a couple of problems here. You'll notice, one, it's very big. So I would resize these, and we can do that in PyGame. But also, there's a lot of space around here. This whole thing is the image, this whole box, right? Well, we just want sort of like this size, right? So there's ways you could do this in PyGame, but what I did is I just went through here and I went up here to image, and this is just Photoshop. You can do this in anything. And I changed the image size to 85 by 74. But you see there's still all this extra space. So what I did was I just grabbed our little selector tool, selected the space, inverted it. Now you can see just our character is selected. I Control-C to copy it, Control-N to create a new file, and then I'll just paste that in. So you see we've got just the shape of the character, and I like that better. Like I said, there's ways you could do this in PyGame, and we'll talk about that much later, but I just went through here and changed all 10 of these walking and idle images to that and then saved them. Before we go further, let me close this. Well, actually, let's go to our C drive and our games directory where we've been keeping our files. And now we have this images directory. I created another directory inside of here. Here's our old Aspen image right here. I created another one called cat, and then I just pasted in all of those. I don't know why that one's black. Let's open this one and see real quick. I don't know. Seems fine. Anyway, for some reason that one's black, but it's transparent. And I just pasted those those images. So you see we have walk 1, walk 2, walk 3, walk 4, walk 5, 8, 9, and 10. We also have idle 1. And these look the same, but they're not. The character is actually breathing, and we'll see that. So that kind of chest goes up and down as they're just idling, just standing there. So that's what we're going to use. So also, we're going to have PyGame flip these so that they're facing left, because we want to face left when we're walking left. We want to face right when we're walking right. So we'll have PyGame do that. So we only need one set of walking in any direction. PyGame will flip it for us. So, okay, we've got these now images. How do we actually use them and animate them in our game? Well, let's come back over here and let's get into this. So I'm in my code here, and let's come down to our Aspen class, and let's see. Here is where we're loading our image of Aspen. Let's get rid of that. We don't want to do that anymore. But we do want to load in all those other images we just downloaded and created. So like I said, I modified those images like I just showed you. You can get them from my GitHub if you want, or you can use any characters, or you could just use the default as they come from the download. And I'll show you how to do that later on as well. So you don't have to modify them if you don't want, but I just did. So anyway, first, let's create animation lists. So basically, as our character moves, it's going to cycle through each one of those movable images, right? So we need a Python list to hold them all. So we want probably 4 of these guys. Let's go self.move_right_sprite or sprites. And this is just going to be an empty Python list. And we'll add the images to that list later on. So that's for moving right. We also want a self.move_left_sprites. And that's also going to be an empty list. We also need an idle, so when we're just standing, but when we're standing facing right and standing facing left. So let's go self.idle_right_sprites. Again, that's just going to be an empty Python list. And then self.idle_left_sprites, and set that equal to an empty Python list. Fun fact about me, I had a band when I was in grade school called Idler. I think that's a great band name, Idler. We only learned one song and then we broke up. That's how that goes. All right. So, okay, now let's define our moving right sprite images. So how are we going to do this? Well, we need to append images into this move_right_sprites list. So we'll call self.move_right_sprites, but then we want to append onto that. Now inside of here, I resized these images, but I'll show you how to resize them if you didn't do them in Photoshop. So what we want to do is, well, first let's just load the image, right? That's going to be, as we already know, pygame.image.load. And then we just want to pass in wherever our image is sitting. So I've got a directory in this same directory called images. And then you saw we saved them in a cat directory. And then the first one was walk1.png. That will load the thing. But if you also need to resize it, we can come over here in front of this and scale it using PyGame. So let's go pygame.transform.scale. And then we wrap this whole thing in parentheses. And after the image, we put a comma, and then we could put a tuple that has whatever height and width we want. So I want this to be 46 by 69 in height. So I've already changed it to that, so we don't have to do this. But if you didn't change it in Photoshop, that's how you would transform it. Just that easy. So we're going to go ahead and do that anyway. So, all right, that should do it. So that's 1, right? Now we have 10 of these, right? So I'm going to paste this 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So then we just come through here, and this is walk 2, walk 3, walk 4, walk 5, walk 6, walk 7, walk 8, walk 9, and walk 10. Okay, so we've got our moving right. We'll just stop right there for now. We'll get this moving right going first, and then we'll add the other ones in, so it gets a little boring just doing the same thing. And when we do the left-facing ones, it's going to be a little different anyway, because we're going to have to transform them, actually flip the images, and that's a little different. So we'll get into that in just a minute later on in this video. But for now, let's just get this walking right thing going. So how do we do that? Well, let's come down here, inside of our Aspen class, let's create a new Animate function. So somewhere down here, still inside this class, let's define Animate. And we want to pass in self, and we also want to pass in that sprite list that we just created. That's this guy, move right sprites, which we just appended with all of these things. So this is a big Python list with each of these items in it. So we want to pass this sprite list into our animation function here, and we'll do that in just a second. But for now, let's see, what do we need to do? Well, in order to move, we need an image to move. So we need to sort of identify which is the current image, right? And we haven't done that yet. So before we do anything, let's create whatever our current sprite is. So let's come back up here to where we defined all of this stuff, and let's sort of set the current image. So let's create something called self.current_image, or current sprite, maybe. These are technically sprites. And let's set that equal to 0. Why 0? Well, because remember, our sprites are in this Python list, and Python lists start at 0. Each item is an indexed number, right? So we could say sprite list index number. So the first one is the 0th item of that list. That will be this guy, right? Which is our walk1.png. So every time we move, we're going to switch to the next one, and then we'll change this current sprite to 1, and then 2, and then 3. And that's how we'll keep track of which animation image we're at. So we've got this current sprite. Let's come back down here to our animate function, and let's use that. We can do some logic. So let's go if the self.current_sprite is less than, let's say, the length of our sprite list. Remember, a Python list has a length of items. There may be, in our case, there are 10 items, right? So it's the sprite list, but it's sprite list minus 1, because remember, the 10th item is actually 9 in the Python list, right? Because Python lists start at 0. So our 0th item is walk 1. Our 9th item is walk 10. So we take walk 10 minus 1, and we get, the sprite list minus 1. So, okay, that's how that works. Then if that's true, if it's less than that, what do we want to do? Let's just go self.current_sprite and plus equal 1 to that, right? So that looks good. Now we also need to actually set the image. So let's come up here again, and let's come down here, and let's say set our image. Remember, before we had right here, we had defined Aspen as PyGame.image.load, and when we called in the Aspen image, right? Well, let's start out with self.image, and we'll set that equal to self.move_right_sprites. And which one in that list? Well, whatever the self.current_sprite is. So, okay, let's go ahead and save that. Now, we also now need to call our animate function, right? So when would we call this? Well, we move with the keyboard with the arrow key. So when we hit the right arrow key, we move right. Well, that would be a good time to call our self-animate function. And remember, it takes a sprite list inside of it. So we need to pass that as well. So let's come around here, and let's find in our update function, here's where we're pressing the left arrow key. Here's where we're pressing the right arrow key. And here, let's run our animations. So let's just go self.animate. And we want to pass in right here whatever this list is. This is our move right list. So we want to pass that in. That's our sprite list. So we could just pass that in. So finally, let's see what else. We're calling self.animate. Come down here. If it's less than the length of that, minus 1. If it's less than the last item in the list, we're adding 1 to it. If not, else, then let's set the self.current_sprite to 0. So if it gets to the end of the list, we start back at 0, right? Now we also need to update our image with whatever we've just done here. So let's go self.image. We'll set that equal to the sprite list. And inside of here, we want to pass whatever our self.current_sprite happens to be. Okay, so that should work, I think. Lots of moving parts there. But let's fire this up. I'm in my C/games directory, or let's run Python Aspen _ platform 7.py. And now you can see as I move, I'm just barely tapping this thing. Our feet move, and it looks like we're moving. Now, when I go left, it doesn't do anything because we haven't set that up yet. Hopefully you can see that. And that's cool. Now, can you see? It's kind of hard to tell because we're really flying. So let's make a couple of quick changes. First, let's slow down our velocity. So let's come up here to, let's see. Here's our horizontal acceleration when we're going left to right. Let's change this down to like 0.1 or something. How quick they speed up. So let's run this again. We're just barely moving. But you can really see the legs moving here, right? That is way too slow. I don't know. Let's play around here. What do we want this at? Let's try like 0.5 or something. Okay, that's better. The little legs going. So that's great, but maybe we don't like the speed of the animation. It's going real fast. Those legs are really pumping, right? So we can add in a speed component as well. So let's do that real quick. So let's come down here to our animate function, and let's also now pass in a speed. So then when we call, let's see, our animate function, let's also pass in a speed. Now, this one is probably going to be too fast. So let's take this down to like 0.4. Now, this is going to be a problem, as we'll see in just a second, but we can fix it. So we're going to pass in a speed, 0.4. Down here in our animate function, we're going to account for that speed. What do we want to do? Well, instead of changing the current sprite by 1, so we're switching to the next image, and then the next image, and then the next image, let's change it to whatever the speed is. Now, this is a problem because we're passing 0.4. So you can't go like right up here. This is 0. This is 1. This is 2. If we call the 0.4th item in this list, there is no 0.4th item. They're integers. They have to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So we need to transform this to an integer. So let's come back down here to our animate function. And to do that, we do it right here. So, this is basically, we're updating the image to whatever this happens to be. So this can't be 0.4, right? So instead, let's turn this into an integer. Now it will be 0, but really 0.4. And then the next time it'll be 0, but really 0.8, because we're adding every time we move. Well, 0.8 is closer to 1, so it'll round up to 1, right? And then the next time it'll be 1.4, which will round down to 1, so it'll stay at 1. And then the next time it'll be 1.8, which will round up to 2. So we're adding a little bit of slowing down by doing that. So let's go ahead and save this and see. We might have to tinker with that 0.4 number. Maybe 0.2 is better, maybe 0.1. Okay, I think I kind of like that. That's a decent walking speed. And if nothing else, it allows us to kind of still see that it's an animation. Okay, so we've got walking right. Before we do the left stuff, because we're going to have to make some changes, let's do the idle right. So when we're just sitting here, we're not moving. That's fine like this, but we can also make it just sort of catch its breath and breathe while it's sitting there. That's kind of cool. So let's do that. And we've got those idle images. If we pull this up and I look at one of these idle ones, and if I cycle through, watch. Oh, that's kind of hard to tell. It's kind of jiggling around. It'll be more apparent when we actually do it. So let's head back over to our code, and let's come back up here to the top where we defined our moving right. So now let's define idle right. And it's going to be the same concept. We're going to go self.idle _right _ sprites .append. And well, actually, let's just copy one of these. It's the same pretty much deal here, and paste this in. But instead of move right, this is going to be idle right. And instead of walk 1. We call these idle 1. So I'll just change this to idle 1. And again, we want to resize it. So, okay, there's also 10 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we need to come through here and change all of these. So idle 2, idle 3, idle 4, idle 5, idle 6, idle 7, idle 8, idle 9, and idle 10. Idler. Idler live on. If you want to know the name of the song we learned before we broke up, it was Ugly Kid Joe's I Hate Everything About You, which was popular in 1992. So, okay. Let's come down here. Now, how do we use this? Well, we've got in our update function something if we do a key left, if we hit the left arrow key, and if we hit the right arrow key. We don't have anything for just idle. Well, what is idle? Idle is not either of these. So we can test against this. Let's turn this one into an elif. So if it's left, we do this. If it's right, we do that. Else, if it's not left or right, it means we're just idle, right? So then we just want to set self.animate. We want to pass in our self.idle right sprites. And we want to give this a speed. How fast do we want to go? Let's just put it at 1 so it really looks like they're panting. So, okay, let's go ahead and save that. See if that worked. Let's run this guy again. And you can sort of see kind of slowly moving, breathing up and down. That's not great. Let's change the speed to, I don't know, let's change that to 0.4. How does that look? Oh, now it looks like a tweaker. Like it's tweaking around. Ah, that's too fast. Right? And this is how you do it. You just kind of play around with these numbers and get it to look the way you want it to look. So we'll put it at 0.2. All right, that's a little better. You can still see it's moving. It's a very subtle movement, but it is sort of, it's breathing up and down. All right. Okay. So how do we do the left stuff? Everything seems to be working fine with right. How do we do left? Well, like I said, we can flip all of our right-facing images left in PyGame. PyGame will allow us to do that programmatically, so we don't have to actually edit them in Photoshop. So let's define left moving images, or say sprites, and flip them. So to do that, we need to take these images and flip them. So let's loop through all of these, or in this case, our move right sprites, because these have all been appended into this list. So let's loop through that list and just change them all. So let's go for sprite in self.move underscore right underscore sprites. What do we want to do? We want to take self.move underscore left underscore sprites and append to that, just like we did earlier. But here, we're going to transform those images. So we want pygame.transform.flip. Now inside of here, this takes 3 arguments. What image do you want to flip? Well, whatever this sprite is, because we're looping through, and each one of these things up here will become a sprite. We want to flip the sprite. Now, this also takes 2 booleans, true and false. So we want true, we want to flip it horizontally, and false, we do not want to flip it vertically. So you can flip it vertically if you want. We don't want that. So this will take an image, a horizontal, true false, and a vertical true false. Okay, so that's good. While we're at it, let's do the same thing. Well, we'll do the idle left in just a second. Let's finish out this one first. So we've got this, we've added them. Now we need to account for them in our movement. So let's come to our update function. And here is where we're doing left stuff, right? So here, let's run our animations. Left, right? And that's just going to be the same as right here. So let me just copy this. But of course, we're not moving right. We're moving left. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this and run it. Make sure that worked. So we can move right, we flip, we go left, we jump. Now, as soon as I take my finger off the left arrow, it flips back around, which is not what we want. So we need to do the left idle images next. So yeah, but it's working. So let's knock out that left idle thing real quick. Same exact process, pretty much. At least this stuff is. So let's come down here. And let's define idle left and flip them. Right. So again, we're going to for sprite in self.idle underscore right underscore sprites. Again, we want to self.idle underscore left underscore sprites dot append. Actually, let me just copy one of these. Let's come up here. I'm just going to copy this whole thing. And yeah, let's get rid of this and just paste all this in. And instead of move left, this is going to be idle left. And everything else is the same. Sprite, true, and false. Okay, so that's good. Save that. But now we need to make a change to our update function. So here we've got our else statement. This is our idle stuff. And we've got it set up to just idle right. But we need to determine whether we're facing right or facing left. How do we do that? Well, the best way to do that would be to check your velocity. Because if your velocity of x, which is horizontal, if it's positive, that means you're moving right. If it's negative, it means you're moving left, right? So we can test for that. We can do some logic. So let's check velocity. And here, let's say if positive, that equals right. If negative, that equals left, right? So let's go if self.velocity of x, because remember x is left and right. If that's greater than 0, right, that is right. And then we just want to do this. Else, if it's not greater than 0, that means it's negative, less than 0. We can copy this, and instead of sending idle right, we want to send idle left. And that's it. That should do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this, run it. Man, this video is getting long, but we're doing good stuff here. And we start out. We stop right. We're still chugging along there. We go left. We stop left. We're still facing left, but we're idling. We're moving. And our little legs are pumping. Whoa. Very cool. And that's all there is to it. Now, you'll notice as we kind of get to the edge here, we're still on. Here, we're definitely off and we're not falling. So we kind of need to make some tweaks for that. This video is getting super long. We'll talk about that in the next video. But it's pretty good, but it's still not great. And that's just because you'll notice the tail here is sort of the end of the image, and it is, or even like this whisker, it's still lined up with the platform there. That's why we're not falling. So we can tweak that. We'll play around with that probably in the next video. But yeah, that's sprite animation. Super simple. Into the water. Do we even still call this Aspen? I don't know, man. I mean, it kind of looks like Aspen. It looks like a cartoon Aspen, except it's a cat. Aspen does have blue eyes. Well, she has one blue eye and one brown eye, which is kind of common in huskies. They're usually blue-eyed. So that's sort of true. And, you know, this cat is gray like Aspen is. So close enough. Right? Whatever. So that is Sprite animations, and that is all there is to it. So that's all for this video. If you liked, be sure to smash the like button below, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and check out codemy.com where you can use coupon code YouTube50 to get 50% off lifetime membership. That's access to all my courses, over 60 courses, thousands of videos, and the PDFs of all my best-selling coding books. Doing over 200,000 students learn to code just like you. My name is John Elder from codemy.com, and I'll see you in the next video.